shortly. In the meantime, the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, has welcomed the Hawks' raid on the offices of Ace Magashule in the Free State Agriculture Department as well. The crime-busting unit had a search and seizure order to obtain evidence related to the controversial Vrede dairy project, and OUTA says that it's pleased. Well, let's find out from the COO, Theron. Thanks very much for joining us. Your reaction to what seems to be a lot of action in a very short space of time.
Who would have thought in November this time that we would have seen the action that we have over the last 2-3 weeks? Unbelievable. We are absolutely ecstatic about what's happening, and we always said we will leave no stone unturned. Now with the Vrede dairy farm, there's one person specifically in government that has been identified, Zwane. He has been promoted, moved around, and all the positions that he held was in a position where he could help the Guptas. We cannot believe that Ace Magashule, as being as powerful as what he is in the Free State, that he is totally away from this process. Musubeni would not have been able to do what he did without other people involved there. It's important that the investigations go through. It's important that all the information, they go into these offices, find whether there's documentation or not, and actually trace it back to the root cause, because that's where we need to start.
I mean, it's quite likely that the Premier didn't sign anything off, and to connect him to that might be by inference. Might that pose a problem? The flow of evidence is important, and only time will tell whether the Hawks, the MPA, and the prosecutorial processes will actually uncover these things, and we have to allow that process to unfold. OUTA has always said the law must follow its course. When people complained in 2017, why are you laying these charges? We said you must follow due process, because now it shows the value of doing that at the time. How was it possible that hundreds of millions of rand could disappear like that and nothing could be done? Does it prove, or does it suggest that the Hawks' hands were tied at the time?
If you go back, remember when Jacob Zuma came into power, he totally disemboweled the NPA, he disempowered the Hawks, and there's been a number of instances where these things happened, and what we see now is the result of that disembowelment and disempowerment. Suddenly, they have found their voices. Suddenly, they're doing the right thing. And it's almost as if they can't keep up with the action that they need to do.
Has all of this happened as a result of Cyril Ramaphosa becoming the new president of the ANC?
It's unbelievable to think that, because our constitution actually provides for safety mechanisms, safety valves that need to be put in place and to protect us from these kind of things. But there's no other explanation for this. What this tells us is that the protection levels were extremely high, and that goes back to state capture, where the president is involved. Now bear in mind that in June last year, 29th of June, OUTA went to Parliament with a report saying no room to hide, the President Court and Act, because at that time we said to Parliament, something is wrong with the system as it is, the President must be brought to book and he must be put in front of a court so that he can face these charges. And that is just after the Public Protector came in November a year ago.
Coming back to Gauteng, 4 Eskom executives have resigned this week. A 5th one has gone to the Labour Court and said, listen, I'm not going anywhere, I haven't done anything wrong. He sat in Parliament and he defended himself, and he said, you know, this is a witch hunt, I'm being blamed for things that I haven't done. What's your view on the line that's been taken? Let's start actually with the executives that have gone. Have some of them fallen on their sword just by association and they haven't done anything wrong, or are their hands dirty too, before we talk about Mr. Cook?
I cannot speak to the individuals, but we know that the rot in Eskom lies deep. It runs very deep. And it was very, very brave of Cyril to say, I'm appointing a new board, I'm appointing an acting CEO, and my instruction to you guys is clean out what's wrong. It's unbelievable how quickly the atmosphere in Eskom has changed over the last week, because the atmosphere there was toxic. Now I need to just give you feedback. The problem with the SOEs are that we have excellent legislation, we've got a PFMA to guide us through the processes, but what has happened is that when you have different levels cooperating and working together, you can achieve very wrong things, not miracles, wrong things. So the board was complicit, the minister was complicit, then the board, then the senior executives. Ben Ngubane as chairman of the board, Brian Molefe as CEO, Anushing as the CFO, and then you have the procurement people involved as well. Those units working together, billions got stolen. I've got to remind you, 1 billion is 1,000 million. And we forget, because nowadays we don't steal in thousands anymore, we don't steal in millions, we steal in thousands of
you're
billions.
saying that
millions.
Brian Molefe is involved in corrupt activities?
Unbelievably, yes, I can tell you that.
So Marcelo Koko says that he did nothing wrong. Is that he's gone to Labour Court, he wants to prove his case, he sat in Parliament and he protested. He said, this is ridiculous.
Take the whitewash of an internal disciplinary hearing out of the picture. How do you explain, number one, that the Guptas, who is a supplier to your organization, pays for your trip? He very conveniently says somebody else, a family member, paid. He knew what's going to happen in Parliament. If you had the proof of payment, why didn't you go with it to Parliament? So you go into court, you take all your evidence with. So if somebody had to say, and Mazone asked him, I've got evidence, all he had to do was to reach into his pocket, take out an invoice and say, I disagree with you, there it is. No, I will provide it to you some other time. Bullshit.
So he'll go to the Labour Court. Are you saying that he's not only going to get fired, but he probably will face criminal charges as well?
He's facing criminal charges. We laid charges against him. We laid charges against Ben Ngubane, Brian Molefe, Anushing, as well as Koko.
People are saying that Transnet and other SOEs need to come under the same scrutiny. Is that your feeling as well? Is there rot at Transnet as well?
Transnet is rotten, Prasa is rotten, and there are one or two others as well. Very coincidentally, they all fall under Minister Lynn Brown.
All right, so you're also suggesting that she needs to be brought to account.
She has a lot of explaining to do, and because previously what has happened is the people around her has been identified as being connected to corruption, but she has never been associated with any. Her partner having contracts with Eskom, her PA being flown into Dubai, the DG of Public Enterprises today still. We've laid charges. Why doesn't she investigate? Why does she wait for the president to do things? We've laid charges of corruption against her DG. We're still waiting for her to do any action. We provided her with the documentation. But she's sitting there, and what's happening in Parliament and every other case today is that there are three phrases that you keep on hearing. I do not recall, I'm not aware of that, and something else must have happened.
Are you confident that this Commission of Inquiry that now has terms of reference in 6 months will be able to do its work?
Yes, we do. Very interestingly, when the State of Capture report was drafted and Thula Madonsela provided it, there was very little information available at the time. Since November 2 years ago, a lot of information has come through. Parliament has got access to information. The leaks came out. We've laid charges. So we believe the documentation is available. Other than other inquiries, we believe that the chair of this commission knows what he's doing, and we believe that if he goes through the documentation, and we've seen the terms of reference, and we believe it's tight enough for him to focus. And it focuses on the appointment of ministers, which is the sole responsibility of the president. Looking at the deputy ministers being accused, making accusations. Why didn't the president 3 or 4 years ago, when these accusations were brought to him, why didn't he act? That means he's complicit.
All right, and what role are you going to be taking as OUTA?
In this commission of inquiry, we will be there every step of the way, and we can only help where our help is needed. We have tons of information. We've got reams of documentation, and we will provide it to the commission. We hope that we'll be called to testify. We hope that we'll be asked to provide that, and we will assist the commission in any way we can, because South Africa needs a new light.
All right, Ben Theron, that's where we're going to leave it. Thanks very much indeed for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. That was Ben Theron from OUTA.